Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Um, I just got through reading this story, and basically, the reason I make these videos is because I want to help people, and I want to give them maybe a fresh outlook or a new outlook on Jesus, and to be able to see who He is in a new way, in a way that they've never seen Him before. And pretty much the only reason I make these videos is to help people, is to bring people to God, maybe to show them who Jesus really is, and to where they don't just look at Jesus as a historical figure or as a religion, but as a person, who is their Savior and who they can have a personal relationship with. And so basically, we're going to do this a little bit different today. I just read this story, and to me, first of all, if you know me, I'm a very emotional person a lot of times. Yes, I'm a guy, but I'm one of those people who believe that real men cry. Basically, to be honest with you, I'm an emotional person, and especially about my number one love in life, which is Jesus Christ. Um, and to be honest with you, when I read this, I got pretty emotional because it floored me to be able to read it, that God showed me something that I'd never seen it before. And so basically I grabbed my laptop, I turned it on, and I want to share this with you right away. So here we go, and I want to read this to you. It's in Mark chapter 5, starting in verse 21. It says, "When Jesus had crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue rulers named Jairus came there. Seeing Jesus, he fell at his feet and pleaded earnestly with him, saying, 'My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live.' So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed in around Jesus as he went to the man's house. So a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, every penny she had. Yet instead of getting better, she only grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd that was around him and touched his garment, because she thought, 'If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed.' Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was free from her suffering. At once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him, and he turned around in the crowd and asked, 'Who touched my clothes?' And the disciples said, 'Who touched your clothes? What do you mean? All the people are crowding around you, and yet you ask, who touched me? Out of all of these people you say, who touched me?' But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. Then Jesus looked at her and said, 'Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free from your suffering.'" Basically, when I read this, God showed me something totally different, and He gave me a perspective of not what Jesus was doing, or not what was going through Jesus' mind, but what was going through this woman's mind. And everything in the Bible is basically, the Bible is a collection of stories about the work of God throughout history. And in the Gospels we find the story of Jesus and the things that Jesus done while he walked this earth. And so when you read the Gospels, when you read all the Bible, but especially the Gospels, you have to think these are stories, these are real accounts, things that really happened. And so many times we read the Bible to try to check it off our list. Well, we've been a faithful Christian today, we read our Bible. Or we read it and we just, we read it and we honestly think in our heads, well, I'm reading the Bible again, it's the Bible. And it's like, but these are stories. And, and not only stories, but stories of Jesus. And so when I read this, it was like God gave me the perspective of this story through the woman's eyes. And so this is what happens. I just want to lay this out for you and paint a picture of what happened in this story. Jesus had just come back across from the lake, or the river, whichever one you want to refer to it as, from healing and setting free this guy that had been demon possessed. And he was out on the boat the night before, and the disciples were in a storm, and Jesus was in the boat literally sleeping through a fierce storm. So Jesus had to be really tired to be sleeping through that storm. And so the next day he gets up and he goes across the lake and sets this guy free that had been demon possessed. And then he comes back across the lake and gets out. And so Jesus must be pretty tired at this point. And as soon as he gets off the boat onto land, all these people crowd around him. And it says that one of the leader of the synagogue. Now this guy, you have to understand, was an important guy. He was an important figure in that town. It would be like a pastor or something like that. And so it says that Jairus, this leader of the synagogue, came up to Jesus and was like, "Jesus, please, my daughter's about to die. You have to come lay your hands on her and heal her." And so, Jesus, being Jesus, he said, "Of course, show me the way to your house." And so they were making their way to the house, and Jesus was a very popular person. He couldn't step foot in town without just, masses of people gathering around him. So as soon as he started to make his way, to Jairus' house, there were so many people around him, and probably even more than normally, because not only do you have Jesus, which is just like an absolute iconic figure, in his ministry, everybody knows who Jesus is. Not only do you have Jesus, but you have Jairus, who's also one of the most important people within the town. So you can imagine the type of crowd they grew. And as they pressed their way through the crowd, all this crowd, and then all of Jesus' disciples around him, along with the crowd, and everybody's probably reaching in to try to touch Jesus or to try to get a glimpse of Jesus. They've heard of all the miracles, they've heard of all the healing, and they're just trying to reach it and grab different parts, and just, maybe if I can lay a hand on him, I'll be healed, or maybe if I can just touch him, my life will be changed forever. And so you have all these people not just walking with Jesus, but they're pressing in, trying to get a glimpse, a better look, or a touch of Jesus. And then you have this woman, and she's been sick for 12 years. 12 years. I'm 24 right now. 12 years, that would be like half of the time that I've been alive. 12 years that she's been sick and struggling with this. And it says that she'd spent every dime that she had. She had nothing left. She had spent everything she had trying to get healed. And she had nothing to show for it. And her problem was an issue of blood. And when you read the biblical text, and I'm just going to be honest here, it was a problem, it was like a feminine problem that she had, like an issue of blood flow that would not stop. And back in that culture, when it was a woman's time of the month, you didn't go out in public if you were a woman. You stayed inside because you were considered what they would call unclean. And when you were unclean, you didn't go out in public. This woman had been unclean for 12 years. She was secluded. The only people she probably saw was another doctor coming in to try to give her his special antidote, or to try to follow on his promise that he swore he could heal her. And so the only people she ever got to see really was another doctor coming in to try to do what he said he could do, and then collect money from her. And so as she watched her money pot get smaller and smaller, and her funds grow less and less, and the only faces she got to see was the doctor's faces who she was giving her life savings away to. And so she had been sick for 12 years. And you must have thought that, sitting in her house, she maybe was looking out the window because she never got to go outside, and she probably sat by her window all day and would just look outside to try to feel a part of society still, to try to feel like she was still a part of something. And so on this day, she was probably looking out the window, and she got a glimpse of this guy that she had heard about, Jesus. This man that was going around doing miracles and healing people, and she saw the great crowd around him. And she must have thought, I have nothing left. This is my last chance. It's now or never for me. And so she must have mustered up all the courage that was left within her, knowing that it wasn't politically correct for her to go outside in the condition she was in, but she thought, it's now or never. This is my last chance. So she hurries down, and she presses her way through the crowd, crawling on her knees to try to get a better vantage point, to try to get an advantage to to get closer to Jesus than these others were that were standing up. She gets down on her knees and she crawls and she wades through people's feet and the dirty sand, and she reaches and she just gets a snag of Jesus' garment. And you know, it says that the garments that the priest would wear, and Jesus also wore one, that it was considered that the tassels, the bottom of the garment that the tassels would hang from. You've seen a rug that have tassels on the corner or tassels on the edges. Well, these garments, these rugs would have tassels on the bottom of them. And it was said that the tassels had special healing power in them. There was something significant about the tassels. So she reaches out, she just grabs a tassel. She just gets a hand on one of the tassels. And instantly she's healed. Now see, this is what God showed me about the story. The lady said that if I can touch him, I can be healed. She was expecting to be healed. She had faith to be healed. But what happened next, she didn't expect. When she touched Jesus, Jesus instantly felt power leave him. And out of all the crowds of people, he stopped and said, "Stop! Somebody touched me. I felt power go from me." And the disciples say, "Jesus, look at all the people around you. Are you crazy? There's so many people around us." And you say, "Who touched me?" Why are you saying who touched me? Everybody is touching you, Jesus. Look at all of these people. And Jesus says, "No. I felt power leave from me. Somebody touched me." And the woman backing away is thinking, "What have I done? I believed I'd be healed and I am healed, but now he's realized that I've touched him. Like, I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting for him to realize that all these people, some insignificant person like me, touched him." And this is what Jesus says. He says, "Be free, daughter, for you are healed from your suffering." He says, "Daughter," out of all the people that are around him. He says, "Daughter." This woman was expecting to be healed, but she wasn't expecting Jesus to say, "Not only have I healed you, but you mean something to me. You're significant out of all these people around. Not only have you been healed, but I know that you, daughter, have touched me. And you're free from your suffering." See, this woman was expecting to be healed. She had faith. She had heard of Jesus doing the miracles. And she's like, "Well, if everybody else, why not me? If I can just get a touch. If he's healed everybody else with a touch, then I could be healed by a touch." But what she didn't expect was, after 12 years of being secluded from society, that Jesus would turn around out of all these people around and say, "You are significant to me. You are my daughter, and I am your father. And you are healed from your suffering." And this is what I want to let whoever's watching this video out there know. Maybe you're thinking, "My life is a mess. I don't know how I got here. I don't know how all of this has happened to me, how my life has gotten to this point, the mistakes I made, or the situations that hasn't turned out in my favor." And you're thinking, "I grew up in church," or "I believe in God, but, and I believe God can do these things, but what I have trouble believing is, does he notice me? Does he realize me where I'm at?" And my answer to you is yes, he does. Jesus loves you like you were his only creation. He loves you like you were the only person he ever created. If you were the only person alive on this earth, Jesus would have still came and died for you. And I will say that with 100% assurance in my heart. You are Jesus' daughter. You are Jesus' son. And he loves you. And not only does he have the power to heal you and set you free, but he knows who you are. He knows you by name. He knows the number of hairs on your head. And not only does he have the power to set you free from where you're at and the power to save your life, you're significant to him, and he loves you enough, and he wants to. And I don't know, maybe you don't have a relationship with Christ, but right there, right now, all you have to do is say, "Jesus, I need you. And I'm sorry for all the mistakes I made. Forgive me of my sin and come into my heart. Please save me, Jesus." It's that simple. It really is. Pray a simple prayer of salvation to Jesus and let him become your Father.